Let's begin with a word of prayer, okay? Baba tuseka ezulwini namanje ntambama siyakubonga sibonga lethuba osinikeze lona egameni likaJesu Kristu. We are noticing that our network is not very stable today, and abantwana bakho abaningi are prevented that way from logging in, and we recognize many challenges that they are facing. We put them all in your capable hands that you manage them for us. For we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Let's begin. We are looking at part 2 of Daniel 10. Quick review in chapter 1. We said this vision is of chapter 10 was presented as a revelation in chapter 10 verse 1. And then if we say it's a revelation, then that means we should be seeking some differences between that vision, the vision and the revelation. And without further waste of time, we conduct our dictionary, which defines a vision as, among other definitions, a religious or a mystical experience of a supernatural appearance. We take that one, and then we go to the Wikipedia, which defines a revelation as, a vision as, among others, it defines a revelation as something dramatically disclosed. It also says, according to theology, it's a manifestation of the divine truth. That's what the Wikipedia says. But looking at Daniel, the author, the person we are talking about here, whose work we are looking today, for him, he didn't have a problem of defining whether this is a vision or that is a revelation, because when you look at verse 7 and comparing it with verse 1, it seems to be saying it's interchangeable. One is either or, not even either or. It's both a vision and a revelation. That's how Daniel will look at him using this word. All right. When we look at chapter 10, verse 1, it says, in the 3rd year of King Cyrus, the Persians, a word was revealed to Daniel, whose name was called Balthasar, and the word was genuine, and great power and understanding was given to him by the vision. Now, understand what that is not your normal Bible, but that is a Theodosian version of the Bible, which is a Septuagint, or this is the 3rd oldest copy of the Bible that is too much aligned to the Hebrews. Since we're looking at the Old Testament Hebrew, I thought we should consult that literature. So it seems to clarify the confusion that we are having, the confusion of trying to identify and define the vision from a revelation. We are safe when we use this one. But the Old Greek, let me explain that one again. When we say the Old Greek here, what do we mean? We mean the Bible of the Jews, when they got educated, the term that we use for them being educated is Hellenized. When they were Hellenized, they didn't like their native language, which is Hebrew. So they were more into Greek now to show that they are educated. And they were dispersed all over the world, and so they were meeting new people and new cultures. So they then requested that their scriptures be translated from Hebrew into Greek, which was their new language they were more comfortable with at that time. And so that translation was called the Septuagint. Septuagint simply means it is a 70. That means they got 70 best people, translators. They locked them in their different rooms, each one in his own room that they should not be communicating. And then they gave them these scriptures and they paid them well to translate. And what was surprising is that these people, 70 of them, came up with a work that was so much identical as if only one man was translating it. And then they called that Bible, which was now in Hebrew, the Septuagint. When we talk of Theodotian version, it is a Septuagint. It's one version that was translated by Theodore, and we're now looking at the Old Greek version, which says, in the first year of King Cyrus of the Persians, a decree was shown to Daniel. Daniel, which one? The one whose name was called Balthasar. And square brackets, the vision, close brackets, and the decree was true. They are telling us there that no, we're explaining here what was true, the decree, not the vision as such. And the forceful multitude will understand the decree and understood it by means of a vision. Now, you remember the time when Christ said at one time, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and those who are more violent, they get it by violence. This seems to be the same notion that is being raised by this version of the scriptures here, the Septuagint. It's saying, and the forceful multitude will understand the decree, the forceful. And that means you and I have to be somehow not just relaxed. We have to grapple this. We have to be forceful in getting it. As Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence. Get it even by violence, that's okay. As long as you get the kingdom of heaven, that's okay. I'm not saying go and buy guns now. No, I said get the kingdom of heaven, no matter how, any means, get the kingdom of heaven anyway. So, from these two versions, we understand that, one, a word was given to Daniel. A word is the one that came with the angel. That's the word. It was given to Daniel. Two, that word that was given by the angel to Daniel was true and genuine. And number three, only the forceful multitude would understand the decree or the word. As you look in Matthew 11, verse 12, the kingdom, since the days of John the Baptist, the kingdom of heaven suffered violence, and those who get it, they take it through violence. That's the text I was referring to. So to Daniel then, the same word or decree was given, and he understood it by means of a vision. Now, that is so far as the introduction and the background to part 2. We're now getting into part 2 proper. We'll begin from verse 9, way up to verse 21 today. So when you look at in the old Greek version of the Septuagint, it reads on verse 9, "And as I heard the sound of his talking, I fell on my face to the ground." But fell on my face to the ground when I heard the sound of his talking, right? Or when I heard his voice as he was talking to me, I fell with my face onto the ground. All right? Let's look at the Berean Study Bible. They put it this way: I heard the sound of his words, and I listened, and as I listened, I fell into a deep sleep with my face to the ground. Yes, you are noticing something. The old Greek, the original, from people whose scripture this one was, they didn't use the word a trance or deep sleep. They did not use that word. But from our translations, modern translations now, we are getting this deep sleep. Let's look at the Theodotion version again. It says, "And I heard the sound of his words, and when I heard him, I was stunned, and my face was on the ground." I was stunned, I was shocked, and my face went straight to the ground. Again, we don't seem to be getting the narrative of a trance here. So, what we are getting instead is that we are taught, we are introduced to the power of the word, the voice. All right? We're remembering that when God created, he created everything just by his word, his voice. Let there be, and there it was. And so when this heavenly agent spoke as well, that sound of his voice had such an impact on Daniel that he fell onto the ground with his face down. So we are not saying the voice was so monotonous that it drove Daniel to sleep. No. But we are saying that it sucked all the power from Daniel, that he fell. And so when he fell, it is possible that he became unconscious. Hence, these later versions are saying he fell into a deep sleep or a trance. That is the interpretation they are giving there, not that it is in the Bible. It should have been in brackets as well. Let's go on we're still on chapter 10. We're now moving on to verse 11 or verse 10. But let's look at PG Temple, verse 10. PG Temple calls this angel Gabriel. That's a name he ascribes to this angel. Where he got the name from, we are not sure. But he is saying the angel here in question is Gabriel. He says, when I quote in verbatim, open quotes, but Gabriel also tells him that he had been working with Cyrus to get him to fulfill the prophecy and allow the Jews to return to Jerusalem. Close quote. Where do you get that information from PG Temple? Aha. He is basing this assumption, we call it an assumption because it's not in the scripture. If it is not in the scripture, then it is an assumption. So, it seems to be getting it from Daniel 10 verse 21, the last verse of this chapter, when it says, "But first I will tell you what is written in the book of truth." Brackets, "No one supports me against them except Michael, your prince," close brackets, close quotes. Taking that one from the NIV. But again, there is no mention of the name Gabriel here. So the question is still standing, where did you get the name Gabriel from? We are saying he assumes that this angel is Gabriel because he never introduced himself as Gabriel. So as we had said in part 1, Daniel could have told us that this was Gabriel as he had said so in chapter 9 verse 21 previously. You remember that? He did say so, but this time he doesn't say so. Remember, this is a third vision, a third visit by the angel. This time Daniel is by the river Tigris. And when Gabriel came in chapter 9, he was praying in his room, Daniel. So these are different occasions. So we shouldn't take it that this is a continuation of chapter 9. No. We can take it as a continuation of the vision of chapter 8, but not as a continuation of chapter 9. No. It doesn't work that way, friends. All right? Let's continue there. The question we're asking ourselves is, was it really Gabriel? We think he might have taken this presumption from Uriah Smith, who says in his book, Daniel and the Revelation, on page 261, paragraph 2, he says, and I quote, "There are some points of identity between this and the other passages which plainly show that this was the angel Gabriel." Also again, mind that Uriah Smith is assuming that this is the same angel. He doesn't say this is the same angel, but he assumes this to be the same angel. So this presumption then presupposes that there aren't many angels in heaven. God doesn't send any angel he prefers, or other angels are afraid of Lucifer, for example. I don't know. Gabriel seems to be the only one. and God is limited in the people he sends. That's what I'm getting from that. So this looks as this the looks that, okay, let me say, Uriah Smith here is so much dependent on the looks of the angel that he thinks because he looks the same way, then or the scenario seems to be somehow similar, then this must be Gabriel. That's a presumption. So the looks as described in this chapter, are quite different from the preceding chapters as quoted by Uriah Smith. So this presumption has led many to conclude that because there are some similarities in the identity of a heavenly agent in Daniel 10 verses 5 and 6 and Revelation 1 verses 14 to 16, then therefore these must be one and the same person or same heavenly agent. Okay. In particular, this must be Christ. And we've disproved them that this is not Christ. Now they are agreeing that this is not Christ, but they say now it must be Gabriel then. So in the same paragraph, Uriah Smith bases his assumption on the effects, you see, on the effects the heavenly agent had on Daniel, both in chapters 8 and chapter 9. That Daniel lost his power does not mean it's only Gabriel who can cause someone to lose his power. And Uriah Smith there, when you read further in this book, he seems to be saying because when that angel appeared, he was not alone. So that is how, it's true he was not alone, but that is not the reason why he lost his power. You see, when you pray, that's a topic we're in now. So such a conclusion as presented by both P.G. Temple and Uriah Smith should not be relied upon because, for example, in chapter 8, there were more than one holy person who told the other holy person, as in Daniel 8 verse 13. And when you read verses 11 to 13 of this prophecy, they talk about the mission of this angel to Daniel. Let's look at the mission of this. What did this, why was this angel here? The mission. In verse 11, the angel says to Daniel, Daniel must consider carefully what he, the angel, was saying and should stand his ground, according to the old Greek Septuagint, or he must stand firm, or he must be strong. That means the power has to do with what he is going to be told. As we normally say, should somebody die, for example, right? You want to phone, say a husband has died, and you are phoning a wife who is on the road. You first find out, are you driving? Yes, I'm driving. What do you want to say? Then you say, no, this can wait. Please call me when you are home. Because when you simply tell her on the road, what if she gets a shock and then loses control of the car? That's what we're looking at here. That's why the angel said, hey, my man, be strong. You have to be strong. When I tell you this news, you have to be strong. And this is indicative of the seriousness of the message he's about to deliver to Daniel. So Daniel himself says, when he said so, he stood up, even though he was still trembling, but he stood up. Then he, the angel, gives a little background of his mission to Daniel. He says, and I quote, "Since the first day that you began to pray, to seek for an understanding, I have been now sent to you." This seems to be a contradiction. You were sent to me since the day I started. How far is it from heaven that you took 3 weeks, 21 days, 3 times 7 to reach me? Then the angel says, no, I'll explain why I took so long. Under normal circumstances, I take less than a fraction of a second, but this time I took 21 days. I'll explain, Banumdara, what that means. All right? This is obviously as a result of Daniel's earnestness in seeking for answers from God through fasting and through prayer. Get that one and get it well, my friends. Get that one and get it well. Prayer is so important here. So important. All right. Our understanding then of verse 12 is that from the very first day of Daniel's 3 weeks fast, as you see in verses 2 and 3 of chapter 10, this angel, whoever his name is or was sent to Daniel with an answer. So you might say you prayed to God and God didn't answer your prayer, but listen, there are so many possibilities that the angel who was sent to you with an answer did not reach you. Other angels, I believe, they get detained for up to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years without giving you the answer that God had given you. Then we blame God that he didn't answer our prayer. No, God answers promptly. He's eager to listen to each and everyone's prayer and answer it promptly. So when you don't get the answer, know that God has given the answer, but the enemy has delayed your answer, and so that you should ask God, this God, to please send the angel swiftly to come and give you your answer. I'm hoping now that I'm clear there. When I talk about prayer, I know I've spoken about prayer, but let me brush off there one more time. Not many times, just this one more time. Friends, when you go to www.allaboutprayer.org, they say there, this is profound, we need to get it and get it very well. They say, the power of prayer does not reside with the person praying. So you don't have to say, I'm going to call Sotobe because Sotobe is a guru of prayer. No, there's nothing like that. The power of prayer does not reside with the person praying, but instead it resides with the person who answers the prayer. It resides with the God you are praying to. He is the only one who's able to do something about your prayer. That is why the power of prayer does not reside with the person praying, but resides with the person who answers that prayer. I love that. I did say it when we were talking about prayer the other time, but I thought I should remind you. Let's go on. So this is especially true because in that Daniel's prayer did not set free the angel who was sent to him for 3 weeks. Did not set him. But God had to send Michael because Daniel was seen to be still complaining to God and pumping that his request to God, and yet God had answered him. So Michael now had to come and step in. So if there are challenges in your way, and remember, keep on sending your petitions to God, and Michael will take the matters on himself to make sure that you do get your long-awaited response. So we are, however, a bit disturbed by our friend P.G. Temple here. We are a little bit disturbed by him. How are we disturbed by him? He says, but Gabriel also tells him that he had been working with Cyrus to get him to get Cyrus to fulfill to fulfill the prophecy and allow the Jews to return to Jerusalem. On page 119, paragraph 2 again, that disturbs me. If it doesn't disturb you, well, God bless you. As for me, that is very disturbing, friends. I will not lie to you. That is very disturbing. Now, we'll understand what he's saying. We'll understand. Let's get to it now. So we're saying the thought that one gets from verse 13 is that of someone who is physically preventing someone from delivering his mission or his message. It's not about somebody. We know as we live, we don't dispute that you have an angel of Satan and an angel of God who are pleading with you and competing for your attention from time to time, almost every second. I said every second. I meant every 60 seconds, not 60 seconds, every tick of a second. Somebody is busy with you there. He's busy with me. And this one of God is recording each and every word in my mind and my thoughts as I talk to you now. You understand that? But what we are saying is that from verse 13, we are getting an understanding of this angel which was flying down to Daniel, and he was intercepted from reaching Daniel and was physically locked in or prevented from leaving or hijacked if you please, for 21 days. Hijacked. We're not getting the message that this angel was sent to Cyrus to go and try to woo him to listen to God's instruction now and set the Jews free. We're not getting that message from verse 13. We're getting a message that this angel was sent straight to Daniel with the answer, and Lucifer, who's represented by the king of Persia this time, prevented this angel from doing so. Hence, Michael had to step up. That is us. We might be wrong. We have to admit we might be wrong, but that's what we're getting from the scriptures. So the God who's being played here was the one who relieved the angel to continue with his mission of delivering the answer of a prayer of Daniel. So having concluded his introduction and background, the angel then begins with his mission. What was the angel's mission? He says on verse 14, "Now I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future, for the vision concerns a time yet to come." That's the mission of the angel. I'm here to explain to you. So it's not that I'm here to come and woo Cyrus. No. It says, I'm here now to explain to you what will happen to your people. Because in chapter 9, you were praying about your people, Daniel. Now I've come to explain to you what you do not know about your people. That's what we are getting in verse 14 here. Let's go to verse 15 quickly. I'm aware of time, friends. In verse 15, Daniel says, while he was speaking, while the angel was speaking, all right, he was all of a sudden speechless or dumb, if you please. So we contend that he was speechless or dumb because he now recognized that what he was reading and praying about was not what this vision was about. But he was reading Jeremiah's prophecy when this wasn't about Jeremiah's prophecy. This was about the 2,300 days. You ask me, he commends Daniel for what he calls Daniel's tender solicitude he felt for his people in Daniel and the Revelation, page 266, paragraph 2. He also confirms our stance when he says, doubtless this vision refers to the former vision of chapter 8. Yes, we've been confirmed even by Uriah Smith in that. Now, let's come back to P.J. Temple. As he said, that this angel was there. He says he had been working with Cyrus to get him to fulfill the prophecy and allow the Jews to return to Jerusalem. That's what P.J. Temple said. Let's look at the truthfulness of that statement. We're not challenging him as such, but we would like to understand better where it is coming from, so that if we take it on those grounds. If we don't take it, we don't take it on the same grounds as well. All right? Now, let's go on. On your left-hand side, You see on the left-hand side, I put two charts for you. Two charts. These charts are all about the kings of the Persian kingdom, when they began to reign and when they stopped to reign. Their names as well. All right? If we still remember the time period when the decree was issued, it was 457 BC. Keep that year in mind. Let us look now at the kings. I'm going to zoom. I'm going to zoom in. There is the first chart. What you see on this first chart, Daniel 11, verse 2, that is Cyrus, who was a ruler from 559 to 530 BC. Remember, the BC years were counting down, and the AD years were counting up. So, then the second king of Persia was Cambyses from 530 to 522 BC. And then you remember the one we called Pseudo-Smerdis? That was from 522 to 486. This should be roughly not about him yet. Then there was Darius Hystaspes from 486 to 465. All right? Then there is Xerxes there, who invades Greece. All right? When he invades Greece, then Greece would retaliate with an invasion of their own, which would topple the Persian kingdom. And that was 465 to 425 BCE. So, you see there is a decree to rebuild Jerusalem around 444 BC and 457 BC. There's a decree to rebuild Jerusalem there. But now, Daniel 10 verse 1 says, the king who's on the throne is Cyrus. Now, how was Cyrus supposed to send the Jews back? That's how we're looking at the statement of PG Temple. How was Cyrus then supposed to carry out this decree? There is no way, as far as we see it. So the person who better could be spoken about here is Xerxes. Let's look at another timeline from another version. Let's look at this one. It says, Wayona, Cyrus is 539 to 530 BCE. That one was also 559 to 530. You see, 539 to 530. I'm not too sure why that one would be working like that. We're just looking at Cyrus. So when we look at Xerxes from 486 to 464, story of Esther. So it wasn't about the return of the Jews either, but Artaxerxes I, that's where the story of Ezra in 458, 457, depending on which historian you're looking at, in Ezra 7 to 10, that's where Nehemiah also in 4:45, and in Nehemiah 1 and 2. But all what we are saying here is that it should be Artaxerxes' time when the Jews and the decree. So it cannot then be true that the angel was working with Cyrus to allow the Jews to go back. No, that doesn't hold water according to the history. Remember, we are using the historicist method. So that method, as we look at the data that we have in front of us, it doesn't say Cyrus. Maybe that's another reason why many people do not approve of this book. They say the author was a plagiarist when he was not a plagiarist as far as we are concerned. Okay, friends, that is the story we've spoken about there. Let's look at the next one. We are seeing the prophet being overwhelmed now by the presence of the heavenly agent. When you look on your left there, try to get you a picture of this prophet who's overwhelmed there, but he's not with his face to the ground. Maybe the angel is still picking him up. I'm not too sure. Let's look at verse 15 though, and conclude this matter in a few minutes and allow you to talk. Verse 16 seems to suggest again that this angel was not alone when it says, then one who looks like a man in the NIV. When it says, then one who looks like a man, there's an angel, then there's one who looks like a man. That means the angel wasn't alone. That's what we can conclude onto there. But that is not true. Let us look at the prophecy one more time. Look at the other versions. The other versions are saying, take the Old Greek Septuagint, for example. It says in verse 16, and lo, as it were a likeness of a human hand touched my lips. Not as, it is dispelling the notion or the idea that the angel was not alone. There was something that looks like a human one. So it was a human hand. So the angel had to appear in human form to Daniel, so that Daniel is not conscious. But even still then, his power was overwhelming to Daniel. So we believe that he agrees with us, Daniel, when he says Daniel's dumbness wasn't in fear of the angel, but because of his realization that his understanding was wrong. That says Uriah Smith. All right? Then he continues to say, having now come clearly to comprehend that that the vision portended long ages of oppression, his breath ceased, and his power of speech was gone. That's what Uriah Smith says there. Pretty much agreeing with our interpretation of this vision. Let's look at the last part. Why? Do you know? Do you now know, says the angel in verse 16. When Daniel's lips were touched to stop his dumbness, Verse 16, he only told the angel that he was overcome with anguish because of the vision. He says, up to this point, no one has asked Daniel to speak, but the angel then said to him, he had been sent to him in response to his prayer in verse 12. Now, what we recall is that he was powerless to speak, so he was given power to stand firm, as he was commanded, be strong, stand firm, stand your ground. So when he said he can't breathe, in verse 18, again he was touched, thus the touching was, giving him extra power so that he can stand. And the sooner he received this strength and a charge to be strong, in verse 19, he said, speak, my Lord, since you have given me strength. Now speak, I'm listening. I'm ready for the news, no matter how bad or good. Speak, my Lord, I'm listening. Then the angel this time did not want to assume that he's listening, but he asked him a question. Do you know why I've come to you? In verse 20. Do you know why I'm here, Daniel? Remember, we said this angel was now in human form, and we normally see people and talk to people, says Ellen White, whilst we are talking to angels unaware. She even says in Parliament there are angels of God who are performing a very important job of preventing this evil government of ours from enacting laws that would be detrimental to the work of God. And so those angels would work tirelessly to work with this government such that it accedes to the will of God and enacts laws that are good, not that are bad. All right. Without any doubt, then Daniel was terrified by the revelation of this angel, whom we believe was on his full combating mode. If you look at verses 5 and 6 of chapter 10, we think that was a full combating mode, since he was in a war with the king of Persia, who's Lucifer. So he was in his combating mode. That's what we believe. You might argue against us there, we'll accede, but that's what we believe. Taking that from the words of the angel, that verse 21, when it says, from here I'm getting back there. That's where we're getting our stance from. All right, so that necessitated that his fear be addressed first before being told the answer to his prayers. So once that fear had been addressed, the angel told him about his full mission, beginning with what had happened and how it will be addressed. At times we fail to see intervention of God through his angels amongst us. In Hebrews 1 verse 14, we read, are they not all ministering spirits sent out to save for the sake of those who are to inherit salvation? The angels, they are among us. You see Bongiwe when it is not Bongiwe. You see Sotobe when it is not Sotobe. You see, that's the engagement of the angels interceding with us Yes, protecting us. They are there just to protect, not to intercede. No, intercession is reserved for my Christ only. They only minister to us. Not even the Holy Spirit is interceding. That is only Christ. So let's go back to P.G. Temple and Uriah Smith, who suggests that among our politicians in Parliament are angels of God in human form. All right? They are stationed there to fight off the evil influence in the form of the laws that might hinder the work of the gospel. I told you about that one. That is it, my friends. Thank you. Let me hear from you. Now, sorry for taking this long. Can you now talk to me? Well, let's take the Lord at his words. Jesus said, who of you, when your son asks for a fish, that will give him a snake? He asks for a bread, then we'll give him a stone. And now that we have established that God does answer our prayers and is precise in answering them, if the answer is a no, know that your God will tell you that the answer here is a no. Excuse me. The only problem is we do not know how God communicates with me. We expect God to communicate with you the same way He communicated to Daniel. You are expecting Gabriel to come down from you. You want to see Gabriel like Daniel saw Gabriel. And you forget that Peter had a vision. And God was telling him the answer is, this is what I want you to do there. So God has got more than 1 million ways of communicating with us. Find your communication mode with the Lord. I said so in prayer. Please revise that sermon, that lecture on the prayer. Please revise it. I did say this then, as I'm still saying it now. Yes, Nomdai. Diabonela, Nomdai.
I understand it's not obviously from the Old Testament, but still relevant today. I'm still astonished is it still possible at this point in time for after the enemy Satan has been chased away and can have access to our prayers for which our field and our figurative as we and even our answers and ability in time to manage the school Satan in this whole entire demonic process to really kube khona in between anything